David Cameron has said he is delighted to have kicked off the formal renegotiation process, which will lead the way to Britain's in-out referendum in Europe, probably in 2017, we think.
Yeah, that's when it's predicted, isn't it? He spoke for just 10 minutes at midnight during a dinner in Brussels with EU leaders.
I'm delighted that the process of British reform and renegotiation and the referendum that we're going to hold, that process is now properly underway. People always say to me these things aren't possible, you'll never get them done. Well, once again, we've proved we will get them done. We've started that process and it's underway.
What reception did you get? It's rather aggressive, sort of, talking to camera, wasn't it? I thought it was very impassioned.
It is. Well, with us now is Nina Schick from the think tank Open Europe, a group that's keen to reform our relationship with Europe, aren't you, if I can put it that way. So what do you make of David Cameron's, what he's said so far, and also the fact that he was given a slot so late at night? It felt to us as though they were kind of just trying to squeeze him in after the port.
Well, I know there's been a lot of headlines saying that. However, it's important to remember that this is the first time that European leaders have actually formally recognised that there will be a renegotiation. So the fact that he even got it on the council agenda is quite a victory for him.
8 minutes at midnight.
It was never intended to be an in-depth discussion because David Cameron is keeping his powder dry. It was always intended to be in broad strokes. So what we know about the renegotiation, we know that there's 4 kind of broad pillars that he wants to renegotiate. And as the year goes on, I mean, there'll be, of course, lots of detailed discussions going on behind closed doors. And as the year goes on, we'll find out more.
And you talk about those 4 broad pillars. Just in layman's terms, in a sentence, what are those 4 areas that he's obviously looking at?
So one of them is competitiveness, things like cutting red tape, making it easier to do, trade within Europe. Another is making sure that democratic authority for the national parliaments is guarded. A third one...
What does that mean? What does that bit mean?
So ultimately, that the national governments in the EU 28, they have a say in how the EU is run. So ultimate authority isn't necessarily in Brussels. So Brussels only does those things that it needs to do to work at the level of 28. But the national parliaments still have a strong voice in how the EU is run. Okay. And then another one is, of course, the whole welfare reform. And then finally, sounds quite complicated, protecting the rights of non-Eurozone states. But essentially what that means is to make sure that if you don't join the euro in the EU, you're not discriminated against.
Interesting. So you don't feel that this is a negative thing, that the fact it was slotted so late at night? You think the fact that it's even being discussed at all is a triumph? Absolutely.
And I mean, it's interesting to see that there's been a lot of, positive reaction to David Cameron's reform agenda. The new government in Denmark has said, they're fully behind this. Germany, I'm German. They're also in favour of lots of different things on the reform agenda.
Yes. It seems to have opened up other people's sort of eyes, I suppose, to think, actually, we don't have to just be in it or out of it. We can change things whilst we're there, I suppose, and still be part of it. But what you didn't mention the human rights acts, and I know that's obviously, there's been a huge issue over our justice system here and about with, terrorists going to the people who are accused of things like that, going to Europe to be acquitted of things where actually the highest court in this land really, many feel, should have the final say. Is that still a central part of what you want to change?
So, of course, this comes back to that question of who has ultimate sovereignty. Is it, the UK, the national, the Parliament and the judiciary here, or is it the EU? However, the Human Rights Act isn't part of this renegotiation because it isn't part of the EU treaties. So that's actually separate. It won't be part of Cameron's renegotiation.
OK, still a long road ahead. It's end of 2017 he's got to do the referendum by.
Yes, but we expect it next year.
All right. Thank you, Nina.